How did your father's shark bite affect you in the water as a kid?
Well, I think it affected me in a number of ways. Obviously, you know, he had a swimming career. He was one of South Africa's top swimmers, and he was going to go and compete in the Olympics. And the shark bite, it bit him on his right arm. It nearly bit his arm off. It actually nearly killed him. So he could never really use his arm properly again. So I was always conscious in some ways of the dangers of sharks, you know. So I was always really frightened of sharks, but not paranoid, because my earliest memories of my dad taking me down the beach and teaching me how to swim only a few hundred yards away from where he'd been bitten. So he taught me, I suppose, through his actions, that he had conquered that fear and that I mustn't be afraid, because he was swimming and taught me how to body surf. And he could still swim, but I mean, not competitively. So he taught me how to swim and body surf. So at an early age, I realized that there's dangers out there, but if you're aware of them, you can still have an amazing time in the ocean. And then there's sort of this, it's part of the Surfer's Code, the book I read. I write about never turn your back on the ocean. So he really taught me is that even though this terrible thing had happened to him and his whole life had been changed by it, he never lost his love of the ocean. And he imparted that love onto me, his firstborn son. So he never sort of walked away from his passion. He maintained that love that he had for the ocean and passed it on to me. So that's something that I think I learned about life. You know, if you love something, you must continue that connection and not just leave it behind and go on to something else.
Well, being in South Africa, there's a lot of sharks down there. That's pretty cool that you went back out there and said that. All right, for the next question.
You guys are doing a good job.
Thanks. We practice. What did you feel when you were sitting in the sacred circle with your son, Matthew?
That was, you know, sitting in the sacred story circle with my beautiful boy Matthew was most probably one of the best days, or maybe the best day I've ever had on the beach, and one of the best moments of my life. And I think that's it's something important for parents and children to realize, is that those moments, those times when you just connect one-to-one, they are times to be treasured and cherished, and they're times to be sought after, because everyone's very busy, you know. Parents, moms and dads are busy. You kids are busy, you've got homework, you've got after school activities, you've got sports. Of course, I know you guys are always on the texting and iPhones and stuff and on the computer, so that's important. But the real connection, when you're connecting with your friends and connecting with your mom and dad, that's what's super important in life.
In your TEDx presentation, you talk about you and your son sharing stories. Would you share a story with us?
Yeah, I'll tell you a little story, because I know you guys are interested in sharks, okay? So I'm going to tell you a shark story. So I went back to South Africa this year. I was invited back to do some commentary for a surfing competition, a big surfing competition that I'd won 6 times in a row. And on the day I arrived back, a friend of mine, actually a guy who I used to sponsor when I had a clothing company down there many years ago, phoned me up and he said, "Sean, I want to take you surfing to this awesome break that you've never surfed before, and the surf's going to be pumping tomorrow. It's going to be big." So he said, "You better get ready." So the day I've arrived now I'm going, "Oh, I'm a bit nervous. I've been surfing summertime surf in Santa Barbara. It's been a bit small." So I'm going, "Well, I know it's going to be big and strong." And he said, "I'm going to take you to a break you've never surfed before." So of course I knew if it was a break that I've never surfed before, there was not going to be any shark nets. Now when I grew up, we only used to surf inside breaks that had shark nets because of what happened to my dad, and also because there's so many Zambezi sharks, and a lot of people used to get killed there from the Zambezis. But since they put up the shark nets, there's never been an attack inside a net. But still there are attacks for people that surf and swim outside of nets. So I went, "Oh, I'm a bit nervous now." So he takes me down to this break, and it's just the two of us. Early in the morning we start walking down the beach, and the surf is fantastic. It's about 8 to 10 feet, so it's strong and big, like stronger than it ever gets here in Southern California. And it's just tubing, and it's coming up and tubing on the shallow reef and just exploding. And I'm walking up a bit nervous, and we walk up along this long beach, just the two of us, towards this wave that's just coming down the point at us. And while we're walking up, in South African winter, the air's a bit cold. The air can be like 55, 60 degrees, but the water's 75. So because you have that temperature differential, all the mist like rises up off the sea. So you're walking along and it's like, it looks like steam, but not mist, steam. It looks like the ocean's on fire. So you have this amazing experience with the offshore wind and these big tubes. So it was just great to walk up the beach and see these waves. And we jump in the water and paddle out, and it's a battle to get out because it's so big, and I'm getting smashed around a bit. And we get out the back, and my friend and I start sharing these incredible waves, just getting these amazing tube rides. And I'm a little bit nervous because, you know, I'm not so fit, and checking out for the Zambesis. So just watching out, making sure that, you know, there's no Zambesis around. And the water's super clear too. So you can see a long way, and you can see all the fishes swimming there. So we have a great session, get some great waves. And I come in, or just before I come in, I say to my friend, you know, what's the name of this break? Because surfers have brilliant names for the breaks. There's that break up in Northern California called Mavericks, because like big wave break was, yeah, any Maverick surf it. So he said, and the Banzai Pipeline, you know, they call it pipeline because the wave looks like a pipe. Yeah. So he said, we call this wave One Eye. So I said, well, why do you call it One Eye? He said, well, when the wave breaks, the tube breaks so far out that it looks like an eye. You know, I thought, wow, that's a cool name, One Eye. So I'm walking up the beach, finished my session, I'm dripping wet, I got my wetsuit and my board under the arm. I've escaped from the Zambesis now. And I see a fisherman on the beach. And he said to me, you weren't surfing out there, were you? And I went, dripping wet wetsuit, well, duh, I was surfing out there. He said, do you know what we call this wave? I said, yeah, you call it One Eye. He said, do you know why we call it One Eye? I said, yeah, you call it One Eye because when it breaks it looks like an eye. He said, no, we call it One Eye because there's a big Zambezi out there in the lineup, and when it rolls over on its side to bite, all you can see is one eye.
That was a good story.
Was he telling the truth? And your friend was just trying to make you scared?
No, my friend was, you know, that's kind of like, it's sort of a story on perspective. Like, my friend had one perspective, great wave that looks like a human eye of the tube, and the fisherman had a completely other perspective. So, you know, they both knew the name, but they both sort of had rationalized it differently.